Eugene Deal says that he saw the guy who ultimately was Amir Mohammed. He says he saw the guy in an XL magazine article 2 years ago. So this is 2001. So Eugene Deal is saying that he had seen an article in an XL magazine where in that article he sees a photograph of Amir Mohammed. That's it. Those are his interviews, essentially. 4 years later. So now we're all the way in 2001, right? So this is 4 years after the murder. 4 years and 4 months after the murder. Eugene Deal gets interviewed again by the cops. Talks about all kinds of stuff, who's who in the zoo, people that they know. And he goes back when they talked about the shooting. He says, the suspect vehicle passed Big's car on the passenger side. Well, if that car's at the corner, it can't pass. It can't pass Big's vehicle, right? It's adjacent to Big's vehicle, right? So 4 years later, he's saying, well, the suspect's vehicle passed Biggie's vehicle on the passenger side. Excuse me. An arm came out the window. He said he couldn't remember what the gun looked like. So remember earlier he says he saw the gun and it was silver. Now he's saying he can't remember what the gun looked like in this interview. Suspect vehicle had made a right turn from Wilshire onto, from Fairfax onto Wilshire. Suspect vehicle made a right turn and leaves. Kenny did a 3-point turn. They eventually chased the suspect's vehicle east on Wilshire, then made another turn, and then they made a right turn, and then the vehicle was gone. So 4 years later, now it's all, there's this chase that takes place. Eugene Deal originally says when they got back to Biggie's vehicle, the car was gone. Nobody else says that they got in a car and did any chase. Paul Offord says we did a chase, but he never says anybody else tried to. Right? Because Ken Story says he jumped out of the Suburban and went over to Biggie's vehicle. Tone says he jumped out of the Suburban and went into Biggie's vehicle. Well, by the time they've checked on Biggie, there's no way that car can be chased. It's been gone for quite a while. So anyways, it's 4 years later. All of a sudden, this pursuit of the suspect vehicle takes place. It makes no sense, by the way. So anyways, and he says they chased it. It made a turn, and then they made a turn, and then it was gone. Okay. And then Eugene Deal, this is 2001, this is 4 years later. Eugene Deal says that he saw the guy who ultimately was Amir Mohammed. He says he saw the guy in an XL magazine article 2 years ago. So this is 2001. So Eugene Deal is saying that he had seen an article in an XL magazine where in that article he sees a photograph of Amir Mohammed. Right? So that would have put it, 1999? If this is in 2001, he says it's 2 years ago. So he's already now been, Amir Mohammed is on the radar in the public. And Eugene Deal sees it in a magazine. And he says, yeah, he saw it in the magazine. And when he looked at the guy, he's like, yeah, I'm about 80% sure that was the guy. Not a positive, not for sure. It's just 80%. I mean, that 4 years later, by the way. And it's after he's already picked out this guy who looks nothing like Amir Mohammed, by the way, in my opinion. So Eugene Deal then says, the guy that I saw in the magazine, I'm about 80% sure that's the guy who did the shooting. And then he goes on and he says, Little Cease saw the guy. Well, we know that Little Cease didn't. Little Cease saw the guy and told Paul. Paul told me. So it's very clear what happens here. The only one to mention a bow tie and a Nation of Islam looking guy, potentially because of the bow tie, is Gregory G. Money Young. Gregory G. Money Young tells Little Cease. Little Cease tells Paul. Paul tells Eugene. Because remember, Little Cease never said he saw a guy with a bow tie. So this is how the corruption happens. It's Gregory Young says I saw a bow tie. He tells Little Cease. Little Cease tells Paul. Paul tells Eugene. Right?
Right.
So this is just, you know, people talking and trying to figure out what happened and trying to draw conclusions from everybody's different version of events. So then they show him a picture of Amir Muhammad, and he, again, this is 2001, after he's already seen this picture. He's already seen this picture in XL magazine in 1999. So 2 years after he's seen this guy's picture in XL magazine, 1999, Eugene Deal says, that looks like the guy. Right? Well, years and years later, he says, no, that looks like the guy.
Right.
And remember, these words I'm using are very important. He never says that is the guy. He's saying that looks like the guy. He resembles the guy. I'm not saying it's the guy. It looks like the guy. Right? It's important. You got to, it looks like the guy, resembles the guy. And then that's what he writes in his, he says the subject in the photograph number 3 appears to be the guy. Not it's the guy. It appears to be the guy. These are different. So then, as we all know, Eugene Deal doubles down and he goes on a couple of documentaries, and now he's positive. Now he's like, no, it is the guy. But you can see the evolution of events. You can see the evolution of the story. You know, there's no, you know, there doesn't appear to be a car chase. He says the car's gone when they got back. And then years later, he's like, no, we chased the car. You know, it's Little Cease told me, the guy in a bow tie. No, Little Cease told Paul. Paul told you. And of course, Little Cease heard it from G Money. You know, and so all this stuff is going on. You've got to understand how this whole thing evolves and then gets elaborated on. Right? So that's where we're at with that. Well, let me just finish up real quick because I know I'm probably going way too far into detail, but I think it's important. Like people, you know, if people really care, maybe they'll listen to this and maybe they'll take all this into consideration, and it'll help them draw their own conclusions. You know,